Hi, Sumit. So I had to attend a wedding, an intimate wedding, and the color code was white. So I decided to make this dress since I didn't have anything white. This is like a tube dress, and it has a rope that will be tied to the back. Actually, I can't really give a specific name to this dress, just that I love how everything came out. So if you like to see how I made this dress, then this video is for you. Watch to the very end. My name is Veronica Adams Eze. Welcome to Vera Adams YouTube channel. Without wasting time, let's get right into it. So right here is a pattern paper that we'll be using, and I've gone ahead to draw out a basic bodice right here so that we don't waste much time. So from the shoulder line to the chest line 7 inches, to the bust line 9 inches, on the bust 12 inches, waistline 16 inches, hip line 24 inches, and the length that I want for this dress is 50 inches. So I'll go right now to the waistline and I'll come down by 1 inch. I'll make a mark right there, and then I'll move to the hip line. From the center of the hip, I'm going to mark 3.5 inches, and this signifies the nipple to nipple point. So I'll go ahead to mark this from that hip line down to the hem of this dress, and I'm going to go ahead to connect it together in a straight line. Once this is done, the next thing is to try to make the curve that will come from the waistline to meet that line at the hip. So I'm going to go ahead to use freehand. To do this, you can also use a curve if you have one at your disposal. So I'm using my hand to just carefully sketch this out. So once this is done, we can move forward to create the upper part of this dress. So I really don't want this very low, so I'll be coming down by 5 inches. But depending on what you want, you can do as much as 6, 7, depending on what is comfortable for you. So I'm marking 5 inches from the shoulder line, and I've gone ahead to really line there. So I'm also extending that line to the upper part, to that 5 inches. Here I'm trying to name this line so that we don't get confused. So from the underbust line, I'm going in by 1/2 inch on both sides, just as you see me doing here. So I'll go ahead and connect this right into the initial dart line, just as you're saying. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and curve it inwards, just as you're seeing me doing. If you have your curve rule, you can go ahead to use the curve rule as well. So for tightening around this upper region, I also went in by 1/2 inch on both sides, and I'm also curving inwards to meet the bust line, just as I'm doing right here. I decided to make the one towards the bust a bit much. I wanted to go in more, so I also extended that by 0.25 inch. So in total, on that part I have 0.75 inch, and on this other side I have 0.5 inch. Hope you understand this. So you know that we've already gone ahead to take the body measurement. So I'm going to go ahead to add a total of this. That's the 0.5 and the 0.75, giving us 1.25 inches. So I went ahead to add 1.25 inches to the under bust measurement. So from there, I'm going to connect it into the initial measurement that we already have. For this upper region, I'm going to go ahead to add back the dart that we took from here. 1/2 inch on both sides will give us 1 inch. So I'm going to go ahead to add 1 inch around this armhole area and connect it to meet the chest measurement. So at this point, I've gone ahead to highlight this part using the marker so that it will be very visible. And this is what everything looks like right from the bottom to the upper part. So at this point, I'll go ahead to start cutting it out. But one thing that you should take note of here is that you can decide to have this dress without that, like without the regular dart or the bust dart. So I think when next I'm making this type of dress, I'd like to do it without that, because if you're doing with that, you need to make sure that the dart line extends to meet the curve. You can see that here the curve is separate from the dart line. So right here I'm bringing in my supposed ruler, and I'm going ahead to extend the dart line that we already have to meet that part that we cut out, because if you're creating this with darts, this type of dart, you need to make sure that your curve extends right, cuts right into that dart. I hope you understand this. So that's what I'm trying to adjust here. So I'm making that adjustment right here. But if you do not want that with yours, it's fine. You can just go ahead and cut it however. But if you be using this type of dart, your curve, that's the curve around the waist to the hip, has to cut right into the dart. I hope you understand this. So right here, I'm going ahead to cut the remaining part of this out, just as you're seeing me doing. So once this is done, we can move ahead to work on the back bodice. However, this is how the front bodice looks like after I went ahead to cut out the dart off and the curve. So here is the pattern for the back. I've also gone ahead to draft. I actually use the same paper for both the front and the back. So here it is exactly as we have for the front, the same length, the same waistline, the same hip line. So I'm going to go ahead to do the same thing. Right from the waistline, I'm coming down by 1/2 inch, and from the center back, I'm going to go ahead to mark 3.5 inches. But before I do that, I'm taking 1/2 inch around the waistline. This is to make sure that this dress does not have bulge. So I'm connecting the 1/2 inch upwards and downwards, just as you're seeing me doing here. Once this is done, I'm going to go ahead to bring in the front piece so that we have everything perfect. We have the front and the back aligning perfectly. So I'm making sure that they are aligning, that the bust line of the front aligns with the bust line and every other line of the back. So from that part, I'm marking where our 5 inches starts from at the upper part. Then for the bottom, I'm also trying to sketch out how the shape is going to be on the back so that everything is perfectly perfect for both front and back. So once I've done that, I'm extending that line downwards, just as you're seeing me doing right here. The next thing I'm doing right here is to actually add the zipper allowance to the center back. So I'm starting from the bottom of this dress up till where 5 inches started from. So I'm going to be using 1.5 inches as the zipper allowance. Note that I'm also considering the slope that we created at the center back as well. At this point, I'll connect the marks together and then I'll indicate zipper allowance. Once this is done, I can also move ahead to indicate this part with the marker pen so that it becomes more visible. So you see that everything aligns just as the front. So I'm extending that line to also meet the new chest line. And there, because to avoid gaping at the back, I'm going to be taking 1/2 inch on both sides. That will give us a total of 1 inch. At this point, we're done with the drafting for the back. So right now we're going to start cutting, and as usual we'll start cutting from the bottom. One more thing, to avoid bulging at the back, because sometimes even when you, after doing the 1/2 inch, you still see a bit of bulging. So I'll be doing something that I just learned recently. I'm coming in by 1/2 inch on both sides on the waistline, as you're seeing me doing. So you can either cut this out or just close it up. So right here, I'm going to go ahead to cut this out, and once I do that, I'll close it up. Creating this dart would automatically make the length at the center shorter. So that means after closing this up, I'm using pins to hold it down. I don't have tape. You notice that what you have at the length, I went ahead to take the length and I discovered that it was about 1 inch shorter than the original length. So I'm going to go ahead to add 1 inch, about 1 inch to this length that we have at the center. So from the center, I'm going to connect it right to the side. Remember that this length does not in any way affect the side of this dress, only the center. So once I mark this on the center, I'm going to connect it right to meet the side of this back bodice. Now that we're done with this, we can go ahead and start cutting, continue with the cutting of this back dress or back bodice. So I start from the bottom and I'm cutting right into that center. And now I'm going to go ahead to cut that area of this, just as you're seeing me doing. So at this point we have the back piece fully cut out, and this is what it looks like. See how everything is aligning properly. So right here I'm merging the center back and the center front together just to be able to see if the length will be equal, because the length has to be equal. So you can see that we have equal length. That means we can go ahead with cutting it on the fabric. As seen at the beginning of this video, the fabric I'm going to be using is a white fabric, and this is a crepe fabric. I got it for 2,000 naira in Oshodi market, and I have 3 yards right here. I'll go ahead to use the already cut out pattern paper to cut out on this fabric. So right here is what we have. After I went ahead to cut it out, I left half of an inch on the side, except the side where I added 1.5 inches for seam allowance. Right here is the center front, and it's on fold. You know how our center front is usually on fold. So, and this is the center back. For the center back we have 2 pieces, and I also went ahead to leave half of an inch on the side, not on the center where we have the zipper. We already had the zipper allowance. And right here is the side front and side back. Remember that for the side front we adjusted it, but the side back is actually perfect. So that's why you have that extra on the side front. So if you align the extra with the side front, it will match perfectly with the side back. So we'll be making use of this side back since it doesn't have need for adjustment. So the width is 6 inches. I'm going to divide it into 4. That's 1.5 inches, because 1.5 times 4 will give us 6 inches. So once I'm done, I did this at the middle. Once I'm done with this division, I'm going to extend this line upwards and downwards so that we have 4 pieces at the end of cutting it out. Let me go over this again. We have 6 inches as the width of this at the middle. So I divided the 6 inches into 4. You can decide to do more than that, but 4 is fine for me. So I have 1.5 on all sides. It is quite important that you label this or you number it, so that once you're done cutting, you'll be able to place it properly on the fabric. So here I'm indicating 1, 2, 3, 4. I indicated the down part from the upper part so that there won't be a mix-up. I also indicated C as the center. That's the center, so that when you're placing the fabric, you know the center, and the one I represented with S means the side. So now I've gone ahead to cut out the 4 pieces, and this is what we have. So this is it. I went ahead to place it on the fabric. Remember that this fabric is on fold, and I need 2 pieces, one for the left and one for the right. This is actually the remnant of the fabric, and in the middle of everything, I think I have about 6 inches. I have 6 inches in the middle. You can do less, you can even do 3 inches depending on the fabric. Remember that I have 3 yards of fabric and I'm a small size, so I can get away with it. But at the end of the day, the length was not enough. You see that I have about 4.5 inches, so I had to just manage it. That means the length right here is reduced from 50 inches to about 46 inches. And I have to make do with that. So you can see right here that this fabric is on fold, and we have 2 pieces for it. You can see it right here. I also went ahead to cut out the lining pieces, and I used a taffeta fabric. I didn't want to use the normal upper lining, so right here I've gone ahead to cut it exactly as I did for the main fabric. So this is the center back and side back, and right here is the center front and side front. At this point we can start coupling this together, starting with the fabric. So here we have the center front. I'm going to bring in the 2 side fronts, so you can indicate where you want the front to be. I'm not going to be using any interfacing for this. I'll go ahead and align this side front, the both of them, to the center front. right side facing right side. So I'm going ahead to start with this one on the left, and I'm pinning together. I started from the bottom to the upper part, and I'll run half of an inch of stitch. Then I'll do the same for the second part as well. I'll also bring in the back pieces, and here it is. I'm going to, we have two back pieces and two side, that's the center back, two and side. So I'm going to be connecting one side back to one center back, and I'm going to be connecting the other center back to the other side back. I also run half of an inch stitch on it, of course right side facing right side. So here it is after I was done. This is the front piece. I am making notches around the stitches. This is to allow this part lay properly. So once this is done, I'll go ahead and iron this out properly. Then we can see what the back pieces looks like. So here is one piece for the back, and this is the second piece. You can see how everything is looking. I will then bring in the front. Here's the front, then align it with one side of the back. I'll go ahead and use 1.5 inches to stitch it down at the side. Once this is done for one side, I'll also go ahead and do the same for the other side as well. I will take this to the sewing machine, stitch it down, and bring it back to show us. So right here we have the lining pieces. I've also gone ahead to join on the side. These are the back pieces, and I'll also bring in the front piece. So this is what the front piece looks like. Yes, I didn't add any interfacing at all. I'm going to repeat the same process that we did on the fabric to these lining pieces as well. I'll bring in one piece of the back and align it with the front piece. I'll go ahead and use 1.5 inches to stitch it down. I'll bring in the other side and align it and stitch it down also with the same 1.5 inches on the side. At this point, we're done stitching for the main fabric, and this is what it looks like. You can see the stitches. Actually, I think if you're going to be doing inseam like this, you don't need to leave so much allowance. I realized that the allowance was not needed. 1 inch is okay. In fact, half of an inch is fine. So right here, I'm going to be aligning the front, that's the fabric, with the lining. So before I start stitching them together, we need to prepare ropes, and that will be attached to the back. So here I have 1.5 inches on fold. I've gone ahead to sew it down. So I'm closing one end of this rope and the other end will be open. So I have two ropes actually. I'll fold the fabric into two, as you're seeing me doing here, to get the center of the front. I'll also do the same for the lining piece. Since this dress would not be having sleeves, I need to adjust this armhole area. But if yours will be having sleeve, there's no need to do this. So I was actually supposed to have done this while drafting. So you see what I'm doing? I'm making that curve. If you didn't see how I did that one, you can just check how I'm doing this. So see, remember that whatever you're doing to the main fabric, you have to repeat the same on the lining piece. So I'll go ahead to do that on the lining piece. So from the dart, that's the bust dart line, I went out by 1.5 inches and I made a notch there. So right on that notched part, I'm going to place the rope, but make sure that the wrong side of the rope is facing you and the right side is facing the main fabric. So I'll go ahead and stitch it down. I'll run a stitch down. Then I'll do the same for the other side. I'll also go ahead and mark 1.5 inches away from that area, and I'm going to notch. Once I'm done notching, I'm also going to put the rope right there. Once that part has been secured with pin or a stitch, you can then bring in the lining piece and also align. Make sure that you get the center of the lining and align with the center of the fabric. Then you can start pinning. Ensure that when you're doing this, the rope is pushed inside, just as you're seeing me doing here. Then you can pin all till you get to the edge, that's the center back, and then you can repeat the same process for the other side. We started pinning from the center, so once you're done with the first side, you move down to the second side, you pin. Once you're done pinning, you can go ahead and run a stitch of 1/2 inch from that edge to the other edge. Then once that is done, we'll go ahead and make a top stitch on the lining piece. Make sure that the top stitch is on the lining piece, and then you can go ahead to close the zipper area. Make sure that the fabric and the lining is aligning, but you see that the lining is not as long as the fabric. Yes, so go ahead and fold the hem of the lining before stitching the side, that's the zipper area. This is so that you can conceal the rough edges inwards. So here is the fabric that we cut out from that slash that we did to the side back. You can see that we have 2 pieces here. I'm going to unpin, we have 2 pieces right here, and I'm going to create a notch for both pieces. So but I'm going to be working with 1 piece first before the second one. If you notice, you see that it has a curve edge at the side, is curved. So I'm going to go ahead and take this to the sewing machine and create loose stitches on it so that we can gather that upper part. Back to this. So here is what this looks like after we're done with sewing the sides and then turning the upper parts. So this is what we have after all that was done. So the next thing right now is to bring in the gathered part so that we can infuse it in this curved O that we have here. You can see how neat this part is looking, so I'll go ahead and give it a good press so that everything is laying flat and smooth. And then we can go ahead to close up this zipper area. So I'm going to be using pins to hold this down from the upper part to the hem of this dress, and I'll then take it to the sewing machine to create loose stitch to where my zipper would get to. Then from that part, I'm going to run the regular stitch to the hem of this dress. I hope you understand this. I'm sorry if this video seems a bit fast. That's because the longer the video, the harder it is to actually upload on YouTube, and I think I have about 27 minutes already, so I'm trying to make it as quick as I possibly can. So I'm gonna have to create the stitch here. I'll open up where the zipper is going to be, but before we do that, we can now work on the side. So I'll be bringing in the gathered parts so that we can start working on this side of this dress. So to work on this, I'm going to be laying one side of this dress flat on the table as you're seeing me doing. Then I'll bring in the ruffled parts. I'm pulling the rope so that the gathers will form the more here, because I have quite a large fabric to work with. So right here, I'm going to start stitching from the bottom of this dress, and I'm going to be placing right side of the dress to the right side of the gathered part. I'm going to start pinning from the bottom. You know, you didn't gather all through, so that part that we didn't gather, I'm going to be pinning it. Once I'm done with one side, I'm going to turn over to the other side as well and start pinning from the bottom, or pin the main fabric or the main bodice with the gathered part, right side facing right side. I'm going to continue pinning this till I get to about 5 inches below the hip line, and that's where the gathered effect is going to start from. So just look at how I'm doing. I might not be explaining it perfectly, but just watch what I'm doing here, and I'm sure you're going to understand what I'm saying. I'm going to keep quiet for a bit here so that you can actually get what I'm trying to illustrate here. Just watch. So this is it after I was done stitching, just as I illustrated. I've done for both sides, so you see what it looks like on the wrong side. So on both sides, you see how it is looking. At this point, if you have a serger available, you can go ahead and serge that rough edges. So right here, this is what it looks like on the right side. But at the time that I fitted this, I didn't like how it looked, because it felt like the gathers was too much. It was long. So I believe that if the gathers is extending below the hip area, there's a way that it would look. It wouldn't look. I'm so sorry that I didn't do the video of when I first wore it. I didn't like what I was saying. The gathered effect was really looking somehow at the back, so I think I realized that it was not supposed to go that down, like below the hip line. It was too much, so I think it should be within from the waist to very close to the hip. So I think anything below the hips is going to make it look somehow. There's a way that it's, you are doing gathers on both sides, so there's a way that it will form at the back that it's really wasn't looking nice. So what I did was I had to adjust. I had to go ahead to loosen it and adjust, so I would have more gathers around the upper part. So I just went down by about 6 inches below the waistline, so that was where the gather fell on both sides. So I didn't do beyond that. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is that I went ahead to loosen the initial thing I did at first, then went ahead to bring up the gather so that it doesn't fall below the hip line. So after I was done with that, I went ahead to insert the zipper. You can see that all the seams are in this kind of dress that I made. We had inseams for the upper part. So at this point, you can also go ahead and serge all these rough edges so that everything is looking very neat. I hope that you did find this video useful. If you did, click on the like button, and if you have any question, do not hesitate to ask in the comment section, and feel free to share this video with family and friends that are also sewing it. So this is how this dress is looking on the right side. So at this point, I've already worn it to the party and I've washed it, yes, before I realized that I didn't do this final video, so that's why it's a bit rumpled. You can go back and check the difference between the ruffles that I showed, or the gathers that we showed earlier, and this one. You can see that this one stopped before the end of the zipper, while the other one extended below that. So I recommend that the gather should not fall beyond 6 to 7 inches after the waistline. So at this point, we have come to the end of this tutorial. I hope that you found it useful, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.